All right, in this video, I'm going to be walking you through exactly how I would redesign my business if I was starting from scratch. I'm going to show you step by step how I gain clarity on exactly how my business works and how we can actually use AI to track every single metric. And I promise you, if you implement what I'm going to walk you through in the next 20 minutes, it will put you ahead of 99% of people because the majority won't even bother to do this. And what's even better is that if you wanted to do this a couple years ago, you would have to hire people. It would take weeks. But now, thanks to AI, we're going to do it in literally 20 minutes. So stick around, get your notepad, and let's get into it. All right, very first thing that we need to do in order to actually build our business's infrastructure is gain clarity on what we do. So the very starting point for this is understanding, first of all, who you serve, so your ICP, and then next, how you serve them. What's your offer? What are your deliverables? Okay, so I'll give you a quick just reference of what mine look like so you have an understanding of what these are because I'm going to use them in the following few steps, okay? So obviously we can see here we've got the core demographics. So if any of you guys watching are age 22 to 50 and you run a service-based business and need help systemizing, there will be a link in my bio if you do want to book in a call. But anyway, moving on, we need to understand, first of all, who are we targeting? What is the demographic? Okay, what are their psychographics? So what are their sort of thought processes? Okay, what do they care about? What are their personality traits? And the reason you do this is not only so that you have an understanding, but this will seep through into everything you do. So all of your marketing, all of your messaging, your offer itself should be catered to one specific person. Okay, and it should be catered to the way that person works, the way that those people buy. Okay, and their objections, their fears, that's all going to help you when you're selling. Okay, so get a really good example. We want to understand not just pain points, but their deep desires, their current solutions, what they've tried. The more in depth you go, the better, because it's just going to give you more points to pull on. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this. This isn't an ICP masterclass, but this is what mine looks like, just so you understand, because I also use this as a data asset, okay? So once you've got an understanding of your ICP, obviously now we know who we serve, we got to understand how we serve them. Now, majority of people have like a rough idea, but I want you to get super clear on exactly what you do and when and how you do it, okay? So to give you an example of just what my deliverables look like, you'll see that I have basically mapped out everything that is done for them, okay? So this is the key stuff that we are going to actually do for them because we run hybrid offers. It's a mix of implementation and consulting. So I've sort of broken it up into that. What's done for you, what's done with you in terms of the consulting side, and how do you actually get access to that? Now that you have a clear idea, obviously I'm just covering this briefly, but you want to have a clear idea of, okay, who do I serve? How do I help them? Okay, that's what these two documents are. They'll look very different depending on what you're doing, but it's very key that you get these first. Otherwise, you're going to find the next steps pretty hard. Okay, now, next thing that I would do, simply because it's now so easy to gain clarity on, okay, what do I actually need within my business? What are the SOPs that I need? What's the customer journey? What software do I need? Okay, there's so many different components that you need to think about when you're starting a business. A majority of people don't know where to start. And when they're trying to put together a to-do list, they'll end up focusing on stuff that, first of all, is very low leverage, but also a lot of the time it just doesn't even matter and they don't know what to work on, okay? So the purpose of this video is to help with that massively. So I put together this prompt. I will leave it in the bio. I'm going to cover a couple prompts in here, but I'll leave them all in a Google Doc in the bio so you guys can actually go ahead and do this. What I've got here is basically a prompt that's telling AI, you are my expert business consultant, systems architect, and scaling strategist with mastery in these things. This is basically every aspect of business that we're going to need to understand in order to go and build our infrastructure. And this is basically set up so that I can simply sit and explain my plan and what I'm trying to do. Okay, I can say, this is my goal. This is my offer. These are how I'm going to plan to market it. These are the different things I want to track, and basically just give it a full rundown of everything, because it's very hard for me personally at least, to organize everything myself in my own head. There's a bunch of different ideas, but actually getting it into a format that I can take action on is a different thing. So setting up a prompt like this means that I can just waffle on the voice note and then it's going to format it for me. Okay, so once we've done that, you're going to see the output that I've got here. So I'll go into that now. And in fact, I forgot to mention the reason that we want to get an idea of our ICP and our deliverables is because if you upload them to a chat like this first, which is what I've done, this is within a project where I've got my ICP and my deliverables uploaded, it means it's going to do even better. Okay, when you're explaining it, you can see that it's also pulled information from my deliverables, from my ICP, so that when it's giving you a full blueprint of this is the stuff you need to focus on, this is how you're going to build your infrastructure, it's actually referring directly to, oh, and by the way, this is who it's for, and this is the offer that we're promoting, okay? So that's all very important, because as I said, it bleeds into every single step. And by giving AI access to your ICP, it can actually see, okay, what is the common buying pattern of your ICP? And then it can apply that when, for example, it's mapping out your customer journey. Okay, so if I go into the Google Docs, you'll see what this looks like now, and you'll have a sort of understanding of what that prompt is going to spit out. Number one is your customer journey. So actually understanding, how does someone go from an absolute stranger to someone who is going to be my client, okay? What is that process? Because we need to understand that in order to actually build the infrastructure behind it, okay? So you can see it's gone all the way from stranger all the way to the end where we've got retention and upsell. So you want to understand that full customer journey, okay? Next thing is understanding, okay, what are the different SOPs that I need for this? Okay, what are the procedures that actually will be used at each different step? Okay, so you can see I've explained my business and I now have a list of all of the SOPs. So this is something that, as you're building out your business, if you do this from the start, it's going to set you up for scale massively, because as we go through and we make sure we've got all of these SOPs and we actually know what they're like, as you scale, very easy to take someone, plug them into it, and it means you're not going to be doing this back and forth of, I'm trying to delegate that now. Oh, now I need to come up with a nice an SOP for it. We'll actually just have it all there because we know exactly what we need to do. So you'll see we've got the SOP inventory for acquisition, sales, onboarding, delivery, and this is almost like a to-do list. So this gives you, if you're stuck on what to do, how do I set up my infrastructure? We've now got a list of all of the different SOPs that you might need to basically set you up for scale. Okay. Going forward, what else have we got? We've got, obviously I've explained the different softwares that I'm working with. This will be different for you, different depending on, your budgets and everything like that. But you can see we now have a clear idea of, okay, where do we want all of our comms to go? So for me, we use Slack. Okay, where are our projects and like client docs going? That's all in Google Drive. What's our payment method? We use Stripe, so on and so forth. What are the bridges that we're going to use for automation? For me, it's Zapier, Make, NA10. For tracking, we're using Google Sheets, Looker Studio, GHL dashboards, which I'll go into. Content, Frame.io for my editor, and AI tools, we use GPTs for a bunch of different things. So next key thing, because this is something that a lot of people don't do, is they don't understand, what should I be tracking? Okay, and using this sort of system here, you're gonna have a good understanding. So for me, I literally said to it when I was explaining in a voice note, these are the different things I want to track, okay? And it's mapped these all out for me. So setter reply rate, right? Everything for my setters, everything for delivery, everything to do with finance, retention, keep it as simple or complicated as you want, but I'm going to show you why it's super important that we get this, because it's now unbelievably easy to actually track this. Next step is the delegation and org structure. So this is really good to have an idea of, because as we progress and we grow the business, you want to have a clear idea of, when we hit this milestone, I want to stop doing that, I want to delegate that, okay? And this will give you an idea of the type of people that you're going to need to hire for, and in advance you can start putting out job posts, you can start looking into hiring and have a sort of better strategy for it. Okay, so you can see it's giving me an idea of immediate delegation. So a VA for onboarding, client setup, ops admin, we actually have that now. Closer, obviously we want to have a closer for sales. This is just giving me a personal idea. Next thing is understanding the scaling pathway. Okay, so this will give you an idea of, okay, at each stage of my business, when I'm at 20, 30K a month, what do I need to do to get to 50? When I'm at 50, what potentially needs to be worked on to get to 100? And, that's quite useful. And we're also going to get some leverage moves. So these are clear things that we might want to do straight away. So this is, again, a little to-do list. You can see as well, I've set it up so it gives me a clear actionable to-do list of, okay, what are the things I need to do immediately to improve my infrastructure? Okay, you can see it said, map out some pipelines, create an onboarding automation SOP, hire an onboard closer, hire a VA, build dashboards, create a client game plan. You get the gist, okay? So this is the very first step, just because this is going to help us have clarity on, okay, this is how our business works. These are all the SOPs we might need. Okay, these are the tech and sort of software side of things that we need. This is everything that we should be tracking. This is how we're going to delegate things as we grow. This is the path to growth. Okay, that's the way it's sort of structured. All right. Now, once we've got an understanding of that, you're probably thinking, okay, how do we actually build this into an infrastructure that we can use? Okay, so the first thing that I would look at, obviously SOPs, that's different for everyone, but it's a case of every time that you're going through this process, I would just make sure that when you do it, just document it, okay? Record yourself with a loom as you're doing it, turn that into an SOP. That's a very easy way to do it. But you're going to have an idea of, once I have all of these SOPs, I'm set up so that at any point when I want to hire someone, it's very easy to hire them, train them, and they have an SOP to follow. Okay, so that's why that's super important. Now, in terms of the data tracking, I'm going to show you a super simple way, because it's now unbelievably easy. You have no excuse to not be tracking all of these numbers. And literally all we need to do is take that. I've got another prompt here, you'll see. You are a world-class data analyst and dashboard architect. you'll see that I basically explained all of the different things that I want to track, all of the different metrics. And then as we go through it again, I'll leave this prompt below, so don't worry about pausing the video trying to catch it. I will give it to you. You'll see I've given it a couple amendments, and I've basically said, okay, give me the link so that I have this dashboard, okay? And literally it's created me a file that does just that. I'm going to show you this in just a second, okay? I've also explained it should have a monthly overview, so I've got it to do that. Basically, long story short, once you're happy with all of the features of this dashboard, you just get it to download the file. We take that, we import it into our drive, we open it with Google Sheets, and you'll see now that I have a clear dashboard full of data. Obviously, these are example numbers. Some of these you're going to have to fill in yourself. Some of them we're going to automate, which I'm going to talk about next. But back in the day, you would have to hire someone to do this, okay? We can now get AI to literally create a dashboard for whatever we want to track. So there's no reason that you can't, okay? You can see I've got all of the marketing data, which is custom to my business, Instagram, YouTube, Instagram ads, okay? That's literally my whole sales funnel. Likewise with the sales data, we've obviously got an understanding of the replies, booked calls, show ups, deal close, total value, our sales cycle, and we're tracking everything like that. We're tracking delivery, we're tracking finance, we're tracking retention. We obviously got our targets, and we want to know how close are we to these targets. These are actually quite close to our targets, to be fair. But you'll see, and then we've got an understanding of, are we on track with our targets? Are we above it, or are we below target? Okay, we've got a summary here where we can actually see the numbers visually, but I'm going to show you a better way to do this. To be honest, what we've got here isn't important. The main point is that it's so easy for you to track every aspect of your business now, because all you have to do is ask, and you can have a full spreadsheet like this that tracks everything. Now, once we've got this, a really key thing is that obviously this isn't super easy to look at from a bird's eye view and understand what's going on in your business. But so what I would do is I would go into Looker Studio. Okay, so this is another feature by Google. And what you can actually do is add a data source that is the Google Sheet. So you can see I can literally go Google Sheet. I can choose the dashboard that I was just in there. I can import, and I can build a summary for basically every aspect of this. So for example, I've whipped up a very small one here for marketing. What I would then do is create a report that gives you a super clear visual idea, so you can look at a glance and understand, okay, this is the percentage of people coming from YouTube. Obviously, as I said, all example numbers, this is a terrible little dashboard. I've whipped it up in 5 minutes, but you get the idea. It's now super easy. We can literally build a dashboard with AI. We can have that data visualized using Looker Studio, and then at any time we're going to have a clear idea of, okay, this is what my marketing looks like. Okay, these are the numbers. This is where we should be focusing our time. Majority of people are, for example, coming from our YouTube. Let's focus on that. We have an understanding of our total views. Okay, so it's now super easy for you to track all of your data, and that will put you above majority of people. Okay, because they literally just don't. All right. Next thing that I would talk about is obviously this dashboard here. We don't want to be manually inputting everything. So I'm not going to go through every step of it, but to give you an idea of how I would actually set it up so that this populates automatically is I would use Zapier. Okay, I use Zapier for majority of my automations for just like basic ones like this, where it's just transfer of data. You guys can use na10, make.com. They do majority of the same things. But what we would do here is we would link our paid ad account and have the data directly pulled from that and plugged into here. So for example, the profile visits, the follows, I think we can automate that as well. The profile visits, definitely. The ad spend, we're just going to pull that directly from Facebook ads so that it just fills in here automatically every single month. Obviously, the few things that we're going to manually input are revenue, the acquisitions, the appointments. We can have that pulled from Calendly. So there's a lot of easy ways to just have this automatically populated. And then once we set up a nice dashboard on Looker, it means month on month, when you're doing a team check-in, when you want to have an understanding of what do I need to work on, you have a clear idea of what's going on and you have clarity on your actual numbers. Okay. And you'll see here what I've done is we've actually got an idea. And this was given to me with the prompt. You can see we've got an understanding of what are the visuals included, what are we actually tracking, and then a clear idea of where do I need to enter data versus what auto calculates. So then I would go through this if I was doing this again from scratch, and I would look and go, okay, the finance data, we can actually automate that. We can link our Stripe using Zapier and have it automatically go into the Google Sheet. The client data, the delivery data, we can have a form that our clients submit and automatically, again, have that pulled into the sheet, which is super easy to do. In terms of the sales data, I have my setters, they submit forms. And again, all of that data is going to automatically get pulled into the spreadsheet. Marketing data, your ad spend, my editor spend is obviously fixed. My ad spend, I can have that pulled directly from Facebook ads. I can obviously have the campaign and the dates also pulled from that. Profile visits, automatically pulled. Conversations, appointments, they're all going to be automatically tracked as well through the setters, form submission, and then obviously all of our appointments and stuff like that is going to get pulled from Calendly. So overall, the idea is here that we can basically map out all of the different numbers that we want to track, and then it's very easy once you have a clear list like this to figure out, okay, what can I have automatically populate, and what is the short sort of checklist that me or a VA can follow to basically input the data that we can't automatically populate. Okay, so once you've done that, you now have a clear dashboard, which is super important so that you can look at a bird's eye view and see, okay, this is the bottleneck in my business. And an even better sort of feature now, thanks to AI, is on Google Sheets, at least, if you pay for Google Workspace, this is super useful. Instead of having to actually manually analyze and figure out, okay, what does this look like month on month? What are the outliers, okay? Very easy. You can see there's even like a prompt here. We can use Gemini actually in the sheet. Obviously, this is all, fake numbers. This is all just random data. But let's say this was actually our data. I would maybe potentially want to understand, okay, over the last 6 months, what is our average ROAS, okay? And it's super useful whenever you're in like a team meeting or you're trying to, speak to the people who are actually having an impact on these numbers, to actually give them an idea of like, guys, this is your numbers over the last 6 months, okay? We can check here. And when you're actually filtering it through, it means you can give them clear actionables, and you can maybe see like, okay, maybe it's the booking rate where the issue is. Maybe our script needs some work. Okay, no, it's actually the show up rate, which is the issue. Maybe we need to work on our post-booking process. What's going on with our delivery? Are a large majority of our clients actually hitting their goals? If they're not, then potentially forget marketing. We need to focus on our product for a little period. And what this does is it just gives you an idea of what you should be working on. Okay, and it means you can see clearly where the issues are. And then it's just a case of gradually over time improving everything until you hit your target numbers. Because when you hit your target numbers, then you can get to a point where okay, if I spend this amount, if we stick with our target numbers, we're going to make this amount. And that gives you, a predictable business where you can make cash flow forecasts. You're not going to go broke, and you can actually see a predictable way to scale. Okay, and that's super useful. So you'll see, literally just by asking, we now have an idea of the average ROAS over the last 6 months is 7. Okay, brilliant. Like, it's so easy to now analyze data that you don't need to be a genius. You can simply ask for what you're looking for and have it given to you straight away. So that would be basically the first step. Now that we have clarity, we can actually, first of all, build a dashboard where we can see everything clearly. That's step one of actually having a decent infrastructure. Okay, the next one that I would go through, and this is why we've mapped out, if I go into the scaling blueprint, you will see the reason I've mapped out the customer journey is so that I can actually build something that tracks that as well. So obviously when we're looking at building an infrastructure, one of the key things is obviously a CRM. So I'm going to give you an example of how I would take a plan like this and turn it into software where we can actually manage it. We can see every single day, okay, how many people are new leads, how many people have booked appointments, and everything like that. So in GHL, this is my chosen software. You guys might use HubSpot, Pipedrive. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. This functionality is common amongst many platforms. This is just my preferred. So what I would literally do is I would look at the blueprint. I would go, okay, what are our different stages? We've got, for example, Instagram. How do we build a dashboard and, a pipeline for Instagram where we can actually see, okay, how many people are where? Okay, so when we go onto the software, you'll see I've got an example here for, let's say, a paid ads pipeline. Okay, let's say we're running paid ads. Obviously, we can see the numbers in our dashboard, but can we actually see the leads? So this is where we're going to build that. So you'll see what I would do here is I would link this to my paid ad account. And that way, anytime someone submits a paid ad lead form, they're going to show up here. Okay, then I'm going to go through the whole process to basically understand, okay, now I've got these different stages, and this is just an example of how I would map it out for my paid ads. The different stages that can happen when we're running a paid ad is, okay, we can have someone come in as a new lead. Then we're going to follow up with them. They're going to be engaged in the DMs, i.e. they're going to respond. Okay, they could ghost us and not respond. Okay, we could set an appointment, okay, or they might book an appointment, they might not show, and then it's either a close or a failed close. Okay, and the good thing about mapping out these different stages is now we can look at each of them and go, all right, what do we want to happen when a new lead comes in? What do we want to happen when someone responds? What do we want to happen when someone is ghosting? You can go through your entire business and you go much deeper. And this is how I figure out, okay, where are we going to place automations? Where are we going to place notifications to notify a team member? Okay, so I would look through this and I would go, okay, when a new lead comes in, can we automate the outreach to that lead? The answer is yes, okay? And that's going to increase our speed to lead, so that's something I'm going to do. All right, when someone comes in, we're going to send them a message. That's going to move them there automatically. That's the workflow that I'm going to set up, okay? When someone's followed up with, we basically want to have automated reminders to make sure, automated follow-ups to make sure they respond. Okay, so for example, if they ignore us for X amount of time, they're going to go to ghosting, and that's going to then send them automated follow-ups. Okay, when they respond, they're going to show up here and move to engaged in DMs. So we're going to set a trigger that basically says, when XYZ lead responds on Instagram, move them to engaged in DMs in the pipeline. Okay, and when someone comes in there, what I would want to happen is have my setter notified. So then I know, okay, at this stage, we're going to have an automation that goes, when XYZ lead gets to this stage, send a notification to Slack that a new lead is engaged in the DMs. Or in our case, we would assign it to our specific setter, they would get notified, and then they would go in and set the conversation. Okay, when someone books an appointment, first of all, we're going to want to know about it. So for me, I would have it show up here, I would have a notification go to my Slack, and then I would want automated reminders to make sure they show up and also to nurture them before they hop on the call. Okay, when someone doesn't show up, they book a call, they don't show up, what do I want to happen? Do I just want to give up on that lead? No. What I want to do is have an automated workflow that follows up with them consistently, encourages them to rebook. Okay. Likewise, if we get someone onto a call and they don't close there and then, does that mean we just forget about them, toss them to the curb? Probably not. Instead, we're going to add them to a long-term nurture, potentially where they're in our newsletter, and we're going to consistently nurture them until they may or may not come back around. Okay, and what you can do is go through, once you have an understanding of, okay, this is my customer journey from stranger to retention/upsell. Now that we have an idea of what that whole process looks like, and you will if you explain it clearly with the prompt that I'm going to give you guys, then you can actually just go through and build a pipeline for every single aspect. So for leads, okay, we're going to build a pipeline for paid ads, okay? Are we going to build a pipeline for Instagram specifically? Okay, the content on Instagram. Okay, and what it's really good is that it's actually giving you an idea of what automations you might build as well. So for example, we can see here, like, what do we want to be tagging? Okay, tagging is just like a way of tracking different things and tracking behaviors. So for example, you can see it's literally mapped out perfectly. When there's an IG automation that goes off, for example, a keyword, or someone comments, or someone, responds to a story in any other way, right? We want to tag that, and we want to have them assigned to a setter, and potentially you might want a ping in Slack when there's someone who's super high intent, for example, the keyword in my bio. So you can go through, and I would personally, there's an example, the example I'm showing on screen is like an agency example, so you can see I would map this out all the way from stranger, so coming in through our organic lead generation or through paid ads, all the way through the entire process, through onboarding. So for example, this is what your onboarding process might look like. This would obviously be linked to your payment method. They would get sent an email. In that email, there would be a form. There'd also be a link to a calendar. And what you can do is build an infrastructure just by having clarity. By having clarity on the different stages of your business, then it's super easy for you to then directly transfer that into software and track the different stages that you want, and have different workflows and automations and AI as well actually handle majority of those stages. And what this does is, if we go through these different steps, by the end of it, and obviously I'm not going to go through and build all of this because I would be here for hours, but to show you the benefit of that is, let's say we go through and we have this all set up, so we have a workflow handling every single different stage. It means that in our Slack channel, for me personally, everyone who needs to do something is getting notified as soon as they need to do it. Okay, so there's none of this, I need to quickly hop on a call and tell XYZ to do something. Okay, they're automatically getting a reminder, and they're getting given the SOP. So you'll see how this is probably coming together now. The way I set this up is I have the different stages, and then I figure out, okay, can an automation handle this? If yes, great. If a person needs to know about it, right, what do they, I think a good way to look at it is who, what, when, and how. So for example, when I'm looking at this dashboard, I would look at, okay, when someone has attended the onboarding call, okay, what needs to happen, who needs to do it, how do they do it, and obviously when is once they've attended the onboarding call. And then you can basically go down and say, okay, in this case, our VA, they need to do it. What do they need to do it? That's where your list of SOPs come in. Okay, so if we go to the blueprint, you'll see the different SOPs. And then when you're automating a reminder or a notification to a team member that says, you know, hey, XYZ client has just been onboarded, you now need to do this, having a link in that notification to the specific SOP that they would use means that everything is super streamlined, because when something comes in, they now have access to the exact resource that they need to use in order to complete that task. Okay, so by taking all of this and using it almost as a to-do list and taking this and going, okay, let me build pipelines to map the customer journey and so that I'm aware of it and so we can actually see how many leads are at what stage. Great. Okay. Automations and AI is obviously going to handle a lot of those different stages. For the ones that we can't, great. We've now got our SOP inventory. And when we've built all of this out, the answer for when someone gets to that stage is, okay, let's notify XYZ person through our specific comms channel. For me, it's Slack. Okay. And let's give them the SOP that they need to complete that process. Okay. Then once we've got that infrastructure of, okay, this is how our business works, now it's like, okay, how do we track and see what's working and what's not? Perfect, because we've built a dashboard where we can see literally every single aspect across marketing, sales, delivery, finance, and retention, okay, which for me are probably the biggest numbers that I'm worried about. Okay, on top of that, as we scale with that, how do we get to the next step? How do we know where we're going to plug people in? Perfect, we've got the delegation and organizational structure plan, and that way we actually have an idea of, okay, at this point, it's going to make sense for me to plug someone into this process. And the benefit of setting it up first is that it becomes super easy to plug someone into it when, first of all, you just add them as a user on Slack or whatever your channel is. They're automatically going to get notified when they need to do something, and they're automatically going to get given the resource in order to do it. Okay, and this gives you an infrastructure where, first of all, majority of it is automated, communication is massively streamlined, data is visible and clear to yourself, but also anyone in the team, and your team is aware of the data that they need to be aware of. You're obviously going to have access to the whole picture, which is super important. Okay, and on top of that, we have a clear sort of path to growth and a clear way to scale through delegation. Okay, and I believe I've basically covered everything, and I'm more than aware that this video has been a little bit all over the place. But for myself, when I was starting out, if I wanted clarity on how to actually structure my business and how I can go about building an infrastructure that allows me to scale to very high numbers without being constrained by, you know, the data or being constrained by the workflows, right? Then this would be super helpful to me. So go through, map out your customer journey, turn that into a set of pipelines that you can manage very easily. Okay, build a dashboard where you can clearly see all of your data. Okay, build an inventory of SOPs for every process that you need to, and that way when you get to the point which you should be aiming for where you need to delegate certain tasks, it's not going to be a hassle and you're going to be so glad that you did this. And I promise you this will save you an unbelievable amount of time in the long run if you set all of this up first. And on top of that, when clients come in, they're going to get a seamless experience. You're going to find it easier to sell because you're going to have absolute clarity on every aspect of your business. And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing at the moment, and they wonder, I don't actually know how my business works, and something very simple like this can help with that a lot. And once again, quick reminder, if you are a service-based business and you need help with implementing systems and AI into your business, I will leave a link in the bio. You can book in a call and we can have a conversation to see how I can help. But anyway, that is it for this video. I will catch you guys in the next one.